It's always nice to find a deal on something you like. Situations like that don't happen too frequently. So when they do land in your lap, you should do everything you can to seize them. That's just what you do when wishes come true. At least that's what I thought before it actually happened. I did get what I wished for, only not in the way I was expecting. I wasn't given one deal. I was tempted with multiple, and despite knowing how little time I actually have, I never questioned if I should do something. I only questioned when, and which should I do first. It's almost like caving to these impulses is just in my nature. And if that is true, is resisting them even possible? Weirdly, this story doesn't even start with cars themselves. No, it actually starts with an O2 common byproduct of owning a house. The endless battle with the lawn, and the slow realization that it's not gonna mow itself. Plus, no way I could do it by hand. Nope. It was in that moment I realized I was gonna have to buy a mower, lest I risk walking out and finding myself trapped in a jungle. It's crazy how expensive new mowers are. It's just not feasible to drop a couple $1,000s on one right now. I think it's time I should visit an old friend. One I haven't seen in a long time because I've been so busy moving. I just kind of forgot about it. I mean, who knows? Maybe there's some new deals on the marketplace now. It's always been my wish to find the next best project car deal on there after all. And up until the move, I feel like I was almost addicted to looking on here. I used to do it daily, and this is the first time I've looked for something in a month. And even though I'm not looking for another project car, it's still nice to look for deals in some regard. Plus, this guy seems to have a couple options. They're older, but he rebuilds them as a little business, so I might as well shoot him a message. And surprisingly, he got back to me pretty quick. I was invited over later that day to come check out one of his many mowers. And immediately, I realized we had quite a bit in common. He had a lot of project cars. Well, specifically, he had a ton of GTIs. A couple Mark IVs, a Mark II, a couple Mark Is, super cool to see, and it reminded me how much I actually like those cars. After looking them over for a bit though, I changed the subject back to the mower. That's what I was there for after all, and needless to say, I liked it. This mower was gonna do just fine. Plus, I'd wanted a riding mower ever since I was a kid. I always thought they looked fun, and to be honest, I was absolutely right. Overall, so far this was a great experience. In hindsight, with one real issue. It reminded me how much I liked looking for things on Marketplace, and it was the start of my addictive spiral back into looking for project cars almost daily. Made even worse by the fact that I hadn't looked in a while, so everything was new. I was a kid in a candy store, and there were deals absolutely everywhere. Plus, with the house, I knew that I would now have the space to actually pull the trigger. So I figured, why not? No real harm in messaging the ones I'm interested in. Half of them are fake listings anyways, so who knows if they'll actually respond. A little overpriced, but maybe he'd make a deal. That was fast. Concerningly fast, actually. I guess that was just some sort of a bot. Oh, it's just the guy I bought the lawnmower from. And wait a minute, he's trying to get rid of one of his GTIs. I think GTIs are sweet. I did just message that S6 guy, but I doubt that's a real listing anyways. Plus, I've seen these GTIs before. I didn't look at them in depth, but they would make for a cool project. And I will have time tomorrow to run over and see what he has in mind. Plus, I'm just looking anyways. It's not like I'm committing to anything yet.
Father made him an offer he couldn't refuse.
What was that?
Look.
Oh yeah, the S6. I almost forgot about that. I mean, it would be a really cool project, but I don't know much about them. I guess it wouldn't be the worst thing to keep my options open though. Why am I like this? I feel like it's so easy to talk myself into almost anything. Damn these eyes that only see potential. So let me get this straight. You not only talked yourself into considering another project car, but you talked yourself far enough into that you're wanting to see 2 in the same day. All the while knowing you don't need either one of these. Really? Well, I mean, I'm just looking. It's not like I'll end up liking both of them. Even though I was still kicking myself for letting it spiral this far, I made the decision to go see both cars. At this point, it really was just me looking, and on the surface, there's no harm in that. And who knows, maybe my wish will come true and I'll find a good deal. The first car on my agenda for the day was the S6, and it was both better and worse than what the listing gave it credit for. It would be a sweet project, but what he was asking was a little bit more than I wanted to spend on it. So I threw out a low number I figure he wouldn't accept, and went on my way. Wasn't the only option I had planned after all, and to be honest, I was super curious what GTI this mower guy had that he wanted to get rid of, given his collection could be almost anything. A lightweight Mark I, a 20th edition Mark IV, even a Mark II would be sweet, and this guy had each and every one of them. I pulled up to the guy's house, and I quickly realized which he was wanting to get rid of, and it just so happened to be one that would be right up my alley. I parked the car and saw the absolutely gorgeous Mark I. Lightweight, collectible, great condition. It was perfect, but it wasn't the one for sale. He was offering a Mark I though, just one that needed a little bit more work. Clean title, but also completely torn apart. Plus, it was missing an engine and trans, and the interior was in boxes. The story behind this car is it was being prepped for paint. The engine was pulled and everything on the interior was taken out as well. The whole shell was gonna get painted, and it all just fell on the back burner, so here it sat. With a partially shaved bay, no structural rust, and its original interior in boxes. The only thing that he wasn't selling from this car was the engine and trans, so it was just a rolling shell. Meaning this GTI would be a project with a capital P. And at the moment, I really didn't know if I would even have the time for it. He told me he'd let it go for $200, which is kinda crazy given how much these in nice condition go for. And at the moment, I really was tempted by it, but I was leaning towards it being just slightly out of reach. A cool car and quite literally in the perfect state to be restored from the ground up, but it would need so much that I wouldn't even know where to start. So I left, convincing myself that the only way that car would really make sense is if I got some crazy sign from the universe. You're joking, right? That's literally everything. I mean, actually, that's everything. An entire drivetrain pulled from a running Mark III car. Anything I'd want to take from that car for the same price. They're getting rid of the shell and they're selling everything from it as a package deal. Now that would be an interesting swap. And it was the same swap I'd had in my mind since I saw that car. After looking at it, I just couldn't get it out of my head. It just grew on me. $200 is $200. A lot of money for some things, but next to nothing for a clean title Mark I GTI with that many parts. Shell or not, that price was just so tempting, and I couldn't help myself but dream of what I could do to it. Sure, I don't have the skills to fully restore it yet, but I could learn them with that car. Build it from the ground up to be something I want it to be. Finish shaving the bay and paint it. I mean, why stop there? I could paint the whole car. Use it to learn how. Who cares if it's not perfect when the car was $200? Just imagine a VR6 built for boost with an all-wheel drive conversion. My own Mark I Golf R. It could be whatever I want it to be. So that's it then. This drivetrain is the sign. I'll build a boosted VR6 Mark I Golf. My wish for a deal had come true, and at the moment, I was ecstatic. I just had to go get everything. After about an hour of driving north, I finally saw the chassis all this was coming from. A Mark III Jetta GLX. And while most of the main things were pulled from the car already, I was here for a very specific reason. They were getting rid of the shell later that afternoon, and by rid of it, I mean taking it to the dump. So they said I could take literally anything off of it I wanted for the same price that we had already agreed on. So with that in mind, I went there to strip off as many parts as I could possibly think of that would cost money. I really don't need half of the parts I'm buying for the exact swap, but having them is a lot better than needing them and going out and buying them later. Plus, stuff like this wiring harness I can turn around and sell to reduce the overall cost. Since I'm planning to go boost, this car is going to be converted to run a Mark IV harness anyways. And this OBD2 Mark III harness goes for roughly half of what I spent on this entire kit. So stuff like this is worth grabbing no matter what. Even if, in the moment, the last thing I wanted to do was pull a wiring harness on a car I knew nothing about with next to no tools. It was absolutely terrible. Yet I pressed on. And eventually, I ran out of time. On the way home, I was starting to realize just how far this had already spiraled. Normally, I'm pretty good at warding off impulse purchases, but something about this GTI was just hard to say no to. Plus, I knew deep down that $200 wasn't really that bad. I could easily turn around and sell each part of it for more. Plus, for the amount of VR6 parts I got for the money, this was also a no-brainer. So at this point, that feeling of anxiety was nothing more than a small murmur. Something I had in the back of my head. How far could this really spiral after all? As soon as they left, I started to feel a little bit better about my purchase. Realistically, I got way more parts than I needed for this swap. And also realistically, I could sell everything I don't need and easily break even on the parts I do need for the swap. So maybe this wasn't the worst purchase. The only pressing issue is I am in the middle of finishing this garage, so this stuff can't stay in here. Thankfully, I've got a shed with plenty of room, and it's not like I'm gonna start this project right away anyways. The car's not even here yet. So I organized all the parts by what they do into boxes and slowly moved them into storage. I figured even if this is the first thing we do with the new garage, I won't have to walk that far. Plus, it'll give me time to sort out what I actually need and whatnot. Right now, the only thing I can't move in here is the actual engine itself. I haven't got around to buying an engine hoister stand yet, so for now, that's just gonna sit there. Man, what a deal though. Oh yeah, I forgot my buddy found a couple 2.7s for $100 and I told him I'd take one. Completely unrelated, but $100 is $100. And I never thought I'd see one sitting next to a VR. I also never thought I'd be the kind of person to buy an engine without any way to move it around. But here I am. I do need some space though, so I think the 2.7's gonna go in the shed as well. Finally, all the parts are in and I can relax. All that's left is the GTI showing up in 2 days. Looks like things are finally gonna start to slow down. And I'll finally be able to finish the garage and put it to use. That GTI is gonna be such a sweet project. Definitely the right choice, I feel like. Plus, I controlled my impulses at least a little bit. You're joking. No, you're actually joking. The S6 guy just accepted my lowball. I'll be honest, I don't know what to do now. I didn't think I'd get this far. I mean, there's no way I could make both work. Well, wait, could I? The following morning, I found myself at the bank, and I took out the exact amount I would need. I double-checked what I would need for that day, and then my friend showed up to help me pick up the S6. The next 2 days just got a whole lot busier. And the best part about that is I was so busy, I didn't even have time to stop and think about what I was actually doing. And maybe that's for the best. pushed the S6 into its new home, and I eagerly awaited what was to come. The GTI delivery soon followed, and at least this one would be a lot easier to push. I gave him the $200 and said goodbye. Who would have thought that something as simple as buying a lawnmower would spiral into 2 rare cars, a random long block, and the entirety of a VR6 drivetrain? Definitely not me, but here I am. As soon as I was alone with the cars, I stood there for a minute and thought, what in the name of all that is holy have I been thinking recently? It's not like I really had a lot of time before I bought these, and even though I knew that, I couldn't stop myself from loving this car. It's literally a $200 shell, yet I can't stop myself from liking it. All the rust that is on it is stuff we can easily fix when we paint it, and honestly, that's something I'm really looking forward to learning on this car. Painting the bay, probably painting the whole thing, and really learning to do a car restoration right. It's not like I'm in a rush after all. Plus, we have pretty much everything to get this car moving already. Really, we're motor mounts and a wiring harness away from having this working. But I don't know if I want to rush that. Probably a better opportunity to build the VR6 for what's to come, too. No point in setting goals unless there's something you have to reach for. Plus, I'll have to figure out what I want to do with the interior. All the pieces are here, they just haven't been washed for decades. I mean, all the vents, piping, door cards, and whatnot are all just sitting in boxes in the back. In the face of literally a car closer to the scrapyard than it is to moving, I couldn't help myself from seeing potential. And I couldn't stop from wondering if that was a good or a bad thing. If it wasn't for that being one of my characteristics, this car wouldn't be here. I wouldn't have gotten the car, let alone a single one of some of these parts, for the $200 asking price. Nor would I have found the S6, or the E30, or the S4, or the TT for that matter. So maybe I shouldn't be questioning if that characteristic of myself is a good or a bad thing. Like anything, maybe it has pros and cons. And besides, it's a part of myself whether I want it to be or not. So all I can really do is just learn to live with it. I had no idea what was going to come next, but I knew I didn't want all these parts sitting in a car with no locks. So the GTI was effectively the second car I stripped this week. All of the parts on the inside removed and put into storage. Ready for that day when I do take the first step towards making this into the car I think it could be. Yet another project with infinite potential. And thankfully, I'm fortunate enough to be able to pursue it, but only because I looked for that potential to begin with. A couple weeks ago, I was wishing that I would find the deal of a lifetime on my next project car. Careful what you wish for, I guess. Life's got a sense of irony, and it sure does move in mysterious ways. And while I can't say that my wish is completely changed, I'm still gonna wish for deals after all. What I can say is that I wish when the next deal does come my way, I get a little more time to breathe between the two. But hey, what did I say earlier? Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, consider dropping a like and subscribing for more. That's the best way you can support my content. Either way, I'll see you guys in the next episode. Thank you again. Have a wonderful day.